When I reviewed Cherry Magic for my ranking anime video, I shared my true feelings about this beloved piece of queer media. And it did not go well. Y'all were not happy with my takes on it and continuously pointed out different areas that the anime did well on. Some of y'all even encouraged me to give it another shot. And after reading all, and I mean all of your comments, I honestly started to feel guilty about it. Like maybe I did judge it a little too harshly. So today I've decided to rewatch Cherry Magic. This is also the launch of a new video series where I'm going to be doing shorter reviews on anime that haven't been featured in other videos. We are starting with Cherry Magic, and next month I'll be reviewing the highly acclaimed series Alien Stage. If there are any shows you would like to see me review or rewatch, especially if they're LGBTQ themed, please comment them below and I will add them to the list. I've created an extended version of today's video, which is now live on my Patreon, which you can find here, linked in the description and pinned in the comments. If you'd like to see more reviews like this, please consider subscribing so you don't miss any future ones. So with all that being said, let's get into it. So, before I get into the rewatch, I wanted to outline my original stance on this anime so I can have something to compare it to after my rewatch. My main issue of this series came down to the gray consent aspect of mind reading, and how that, in combination of love bombing, coerced Adachi into being in a relationship. It just left a really bad taste in my mouth. Like, I really do feel like if Adachi hadn't been constantly bombarded by all of the intrusive thoughts coming from Kurosawa, he would not have pursued a relationship with him. I also absolutely could not stand the Fujoshi character, whose only contribution to the anime was fetishizing her co-workers. During my original reviews, I completely forgot to touch on the age gap between the side couple, featuring Wataya, who was 20, and Suge, who was 30. There is a weird and possibly toxic power disparity over a 30-something well-known author going after his 20-year-old delivery man. Those were my main issues with this series. Now that I've written out my thoughts, I'm gonna go rewatch the whole thing in one sitting and I'll let you know how I feel about it after. Okay, y'all, this isn't gonna be easy, and it's even hard to write these words because it means swallowing my pride, but I can't deny it anymore. That was super cute. This is such an ego hit because I hate admitting when I'm wrong, but I think I was in the wrong about my previous review because, yep, I get it now. It's a good show, okay? Is there still a gray area of consent since Kurosawa didn't know that Adachi could read his mind? Yes. Was there also technically some love bombing on his part towards Adachi, which helped convince Adachi to fall in love with him? Also, yes. But one of the biggest components that really stood out to me when I was rewatching is that when Kurosawa is forward with Adachi and starts to cross the line, he is able to challenge and hold himself accountable for that bad behavior. Gray areas of consent are dangerous because when aggressors force themselves onto victims, they usually do so with little to no care for their victims' feelings. I just didn't sense that in Kurosawa, and I also think that he wants some extra brownie points for how he reacted when he learned about the power. He immediately reflected and lamented on all of the times where he came on even stronger than he would have and apologized for making Adachi feel uncomfortable. Not gonna lie though, there is a scene where Kurosawa is very determined to pursue Adachi and literally thinks the line, "I'll make sure he falls for me." When Adachi hears this, he is extremely uncomfortable and repulsed by it. I think we can all agree that this aggressive mindset is not great and very much falls into the predatory category. There is a flip side of things that I didn't really discuss in either of my reviews, in that Adachi is also responsible for being toxic with this gray area of consent, because he had so many opportunities to inform Kurosawa of his power, and by not doing so, he was invading Kurosawa's privacy and consent. I definitely think Adachi could have done more to take accountability and own up to how his omission was predatory. I would have liked to see him working harder towards building back trust with Kurosawa after violating it for so long. However, I am mostly satisfied with how they worked things out once he was able to come clean about his powers. I was very impressed with how their communication was able to improve, which made their relationship healthier overall. The next point I was upset about was the Fujoshi character, and I don't think any of y'all are going to be surprised by this, but my feelings on her did not change. She is still trash, she still acts inappropriately, and she still gets aroused thinking about fetishizing her coworkers. It's Fujoshis like this that make the BL fandom an unsafe space for gay men to participate in, and that is absolutely unacceptable. I have a zero tolerance policy for Fujoshis who act this way, and I hope that all of you will too, because everyone deserves to feel safe in this fandom, and toxic Fujoshis who threaten that safety to satisfy their own sexual desires do not deserve to be here. So the final point was the age gap relationship between Suge and Wataya. After watching the anime and then double checking fandom wikis afterwards, I can confirm that Wataya is actually 23, not 20. I feel a lot more comfortable with their age gap, especially since Wataya is fully an adult, graduated from college, and in a solidly independent living situation. I really looked out for possible power imbalances, and although it did start out that way, with Suge being a famous author and Wataya being a delivery man, it ended with Wataya becoming a famous idol, which makes their positions much more even. They also didn't start dating until after this power shift happened, which has them starting a relationship on a much more even footing. The other red flag that went off for me was when they first started getting closer, and Wataya mentions that he feels safe with Suge because he reminds him of his dad. So that isn't great. Since this point was never brought up again though, I'm guessing and hoping that this is just a momentary mindset and hopefully they move past that. Although a 7-year age gap isn't the best, I do feel a lot more comfortable seeing a much more even power balance between the two by the end of the series. I think if Wataya was dependent on Suge for housing and taking care of his daily needs, that would be a whole other ball game. But since they are both independently stable before and during their relationship, that power dynamic was never established. I am tentatively moving towards being okay with their relationship since it passed all the elements that would normally make me disapprove of an age gap relationship. I would love to hear what y'all think about their relationship and if there's anything I'm missing in my review about them. I think the biggest difference between this viewing and my first time was that when I originally watched it, I watched it week to week over 3 months, and this time I watched it all in one sitting. This process just goes to show how drastically different of experiences you can have with anime, depending on when you watch it in your life, how you watch it, and just how it interacts with where you're at in your anime journey. I do want to thank everyone for challenging me to expand my views on Cherry Magic. As much as it hurts my soul to admit that I'm wrong, I can admit that with this one, I was in fact wrong. And for that, I'm changing my score of Cherry Magic from a 5 out of 10 to a 8 out of 10. I also wanted to give it an additional shout out for featuring the first same-sex marriage in an anime. I did not know that this was the first, and I think that is a massive win that should be widely celebrated. Hopefully we will see many more to come in the future, and that Japan can finally pass legislation to legalize same-sex marriage. If you'd like to see the extended review of today's video, I have it up on my Patreon, which you can access here or in the description. Shout out to all of my Patreon producers, including Sakura Sky, Hortensia, Karen Miriam Goldberg, Jeff Friend, Horsey Bread, and a special shout out to Legion Zero. No new video next week since I'm returning to my regular posting schedule, and I honestly just need a break. Next video will be on July 26th, which I am super excited about because we're going to dive into my all-time favorite queer anime icons. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss it. Thank y'all so much for sticking around, and I'll see all of y'all on the next one.